Welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses, in what should probably be a very sombre episode on the back of a 4-1 defeat to Rangers, in which Connor Barron scored his first Don's goal. Yes, I'm saying that with the same amount of enthusiasm that Rob McLean commentated the goal. Jesus Christ, men, liven up, we just taken the lead at Ibrox. But someone said to us last night on Twitter, maybe he could foresee what was to come, because Calum, it was really a game that didn't go to plan. We're not going to do a normal detailed match review because, let's be honest, there's other Aberdeen podcasts out there that I know a lot of you listen to and look at their insight as well. So three of us doing the same thing is maybe going to be a bit tedious on the back of that. So we've got a bit of a different idea for this one, which we'll come into. But what was your initial reaction and thoughts on the game itself, Calum? Because we'll still cover what our thoughts were, I guess.
I mean, by the end of it, I was so fed up. It was unreal because they were like tormenting us the way Rangers played compared to the way we did. They were absolutely relentless. We were extremely poor. Clearly, the tactics and the shape, everything didn't work. And when it was working, as soon as we got our just rewards, change things. It stopped pressing, stopped trying, have a go. And we'll come to that particular point later on. But it was, oh, bloody hell, it was awful. And credit to everyone that went down there, because that could be another one that people are asking for refunds, and it would be rightly so. But what did you make of that shit show? Maybe we'll put it, Glen?
Yeah, well, I went from breaking my Aberdeen pen in celebrating the Connor Barron goal in such emphatic. I think I was screaming for a penalty. I threw it off my desk when Duke went down, and then picked it up and it was in pieces. But I'm in Den Helder when we're doing this recording tonight. Otherwise, I'd have, for those that watch our videos, would have got to seen the broken pen. I was not putting that in my hand luggage just for effects for the recording. So apologies for that. But I just can't believe how badly it went wrong. And I think, so what we've done for this episode is basically ask people for what they want us to discuss on this show tonight. And it's been fair to say, Calum, there's been loads of responses. Our notifications have been going pretty crazy, mainly thanks to Johnny Main, which we'll come on to. We'll save the best for last, I think, Johnny. But it's how we handled that game. It was 4-1 going on 8 or 9. And if we'd got beat 8 or 9-1, I think I'd have just patched this episode, to be honest. And the worst thing about it, though, if we'd conceded 8, you couldn't have said that they didn't deserve 8. And that really hurts to say. The way they cut through us like a hot knife through butter. And, Jim Goodwin as well, his post-match interview, man, just... saying, oh, if we'd got in at half-time at 1-1, I was ready to change things. We got in at 2-1 behind. Why are you not changing it? Why are you waiting once again till the game's gone before you change it? Why are we not learning from our mistakes week in, week out? It's just so poor once again. And I think that is why there is the reaction that has come on the back of that. I know I put out that tweet at full time saying, grand scheme of things, we're still a point behind third. Game in hand on Hibs, who we play, of course, on Friday night, which is now a huge game, albeit people were quick to remind me that the game in hand is, of course, against Rangers, albeit at Tawdry. Hopefully would be a different kettle of fish compared to what we saw this weekend. But I just think it's inexcusable when you go to somewhere like Ibrox and put yourself 1-0 up. You're 90 seconds away from going in 1-1 at half time. What's Ross McCrory doing? I did the live reaction at half time. And that is a prime example of shooting ourselves in the foot. Just punt it as far away as you can. Let the defence reset. Yeah, I just think all the goals were avoidable. Again, we seem to be speaking about that every week, and people will be getting fed up of it. I don't really give anybody pass marks from the weekend. Maybe Connor Barron for getting his first Don's goal, and Duke potentially pass marks. The only player that really seemed to cause Rangers problems this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Duke, giving him pass marks. I'm not certain if I agree. However, you did mention pre-match, prior to the game against Rangers, that if he scored, you had a song prepared for him after my rendition. Was it last episode, perhaps the episode before?
Yeah. We both had a rendition for him. We're just trying to get our own songbook going.
I know. Can
Core group
any
over
chance
here.
we'll get to hear it at all? So just to try and maybe cheer us up, perhaps?
Yeah, what was this? Am I like Chris from Love Island? Do you need me to do a Duke song to lift the mood a little bit?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please. Okay. Ooh, baby, do you know what it's worth? Luis Lopez is the best on earth. He's from Cape Verde. Who gives a fuck? He's gonna win us the Scottish Cup. I was going to say League Cup, but I felt after the weekend it's maybe a bit dubious.
Yeah, I think so, given who we've got to play semi-final. But I enjoyed that, and it certainly distracted me, I think, from...
But it's quite good because you could actually incorporate the League Cup if he does score at Hampden, of course. And then Scottish Cup run, So it works for both domestic competitions anyway.
Yeah, versatile.
I know. I like this podcast at times.
Well, we're having to adjust, I think, after that.
Yeah. So, as I said, instead of opening up the wounds and trying to wind ourselves up too much and maybe wind yourselves up, the viewers and, of course, listeners to this show, we asked you what you wanted us to discuss. We did that over on our Twitter account at @RTG_podcast. So if you don't follow us on social media, why don't you give us a follow over there on Twitter? Calum, as I said, I'm in Den Helder, so I've just got the laptop. You've got the two screens at home just now, so you've got the questions lined up in front of you. And yes, Jonathan, as I said, we're going to come to your question last, because, as I said, our notifications are still going crazy just now with your question, so we'll get into that one last. But Calum, why don't you kick us off with, as I said, we did receive lots of points from this. We have kind of gone through them all and looked to pick the best ones that kind of feel appropriate to the weekend's defeat. So if your question wasn't included here, we're sorry we couldn't include everything into the episode, but we do appreciate you taking the time to give us your thoughts, and we have enjoyed reading them all and looking to get them included.
Absolutely, and I also appreciate all of your patience with me as I've got to read them out, and the responsibility it falls on my shoulders, which usually doesn't end particularly well. But we'll
just like Aberdeen's defending this season.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens. First up, we've got a question from Greg J. Duncan, and he mentioned that the approach between the games against Celtic and Ibrox, at Ibrox against Rangers, were chalk and cheese, very, very different. He's wondering, can we find a balance, as we clearly don't have the quality in defence to be that attacking away from home, as I think we well saw, because it could have been an absolute cricket score against Rangers.
Yeah, and I really like this point from Greg, because I think I replied to him on the Twitter account saying it's very much catch-22 when we go to places like Parkhead and Ibrox. We're screaming out for the team to have a go. I think we were screaming out on this podcast that we were pretty much respectful of Celtic in that opening day of the season. I didn't feel we laid a glove on them, and we were both singing from the rooftop in the preview saying, Rangers are low on confidence, let's go there, let's have a go. We shouldn't hold any fear. Well, boy, were we wrong, because we tried to have a go and got resoundingly punished for doing so. So I think as fans, maybe that says something about what we've kind of got to maybe rein in a bit of expectation and maybe a reality check. I don't know if that's harsh, but then, Calum, we've also gone to Tannadice, Easter Road and Ibrox and conceded 3+ goals in all those away games. So maybe says more about how we're lining up away from home. But yeah, I think certainly the second point that Greg makes about the quality in the defence is very, very apt, especially after this weekend.
Definitely. I mean, if you looked at the match stats of this game, you would not look at that.
It should come with a parental warning, by the way.
I know. But you wouldn't look at that and go, oh, we had a go. If anyone's not seen them, and admittedly I held off looking at them because I just didn't want to do it to myself until right before recording, and I was shocked. We had 30% of the ball. We had 5 shots, one of them on target, which was obviously the goal from Connor Barron. After that, we didn't hit the target of Tess McGregor even once. Rangers had 36 shots in total, with 13 of them going on target. I don't think you can put that down as having a go. I think we did until we scored, and then we went into our shells completely, and we just got exposed 100% with the shape of our formation against theirs.
But then, did we go into a shell? Because if we went into a shell when we conceded, we should have changed the formation to make it more of a shell, because it was probably
make it more strong of a shell anyway. Yeah,
yeah, it's probably one of the weakest shells you'll ever see. And I think that was like his second point, because I think he also tweeted us as well. Was it he tweeted game management? Was it? Is that right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's also appropriate, because our game management for another away game in which we've taken the lead, you go back to the Hibs game. I know that game's affected by the red card, but our game management in that game was shocking. Our game management in this one was equally shocking. You know, I highlighted Ross McCrory, his decision making right on half time, but surely as well, Jim Goodwin's got to be saying to the players, try do something, get us into half time at 1-1. I know we were under pressure, but if we get into half time at 1-1 at Ibrox, you know, as I said, he said he was going to change it, but even if we came out and hadn't changed it for the first 5 minutes, continue to try and frustrate Rangers. I know we had that chance very early on in the second half. If Duke gets his head on it and a better connection, we're maybe talking about 4-2, not a different game totally. But yeah, I just think once again, you know, we're going to come on to a few more questions around the manager, but I think there's rightly questions being asked on Jim Goodwin's game management, especially when things are going wrong. You know, we were also often very critical at Derek McInnes and his game management, sometimes looking to see games out at 1-0, not kill games off. And I think Jim Goodwin's got a bit of an issue when we're trying to chase the game. He's maybe a bit stubborn in his approach. I think that was a word that's been used a few times. I don't know what your thought is on his game management. Share those views, or?
Yeah, I think he was too reluctant to change. I think if we get in at halftime 1-1 or whatever, and he was going to change it, should have anyway. You know, we're down 2-1. Should have changed it to be a bit more positive, perhaps, because backs were against the wall, admittedly, and clearly what our setup against theirs wasn't working, because our wider centre backs had an absolutely torrid time going up against Kent, and with the fullbacks bombing forward as well. And our wing-backs weren't doing enough to pin back their wing-backs to make it a one-on-one either. But
it's also frustrating that everybody, either at the game or watching legally, illegally, could see that was the issue, but yet the man in the dugout can't see it. That's, for me, the more alarming thing. And I think the ABZ guys, they tweeted out that they discussed something in their preview about that there was an option for Rangers to be kind of attacking down the wing. So if they can even see that when previewing the game, how did we not have that covered as a threat? Or, I mean, we as in the management. You know, it's pretty alarming. And I think it's only heightened the alarmingness because of how badly Saturday could have gone. I mean, it went pretty badly, but it really could and should have been a lot worse.
Yeah. The only thing positive I'd maybe take, which is weird, is hopefully then we'll learn from both this and the game against Celtic. You know, it's a lot of new players and experience and things like that, which obviously plays into things. So hopefully Jim Goodwin will learn, and he's quite inexperienced as well.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe, given we've got Celtic and Rangers to play once again before the semi-final, we'll see if we've learned our lesson. And that brings me nicely on to the next question from Christopher Mayland. And he said, thank you very much, I'm not bad at this.
Yeah.
The having a go approach clearly didn't work. So how do we approach that semi-final, given what we saw on Saturday?
With a lot of fear, dread, and alcohol. That's for sure. Copious amounts of alcohol. Drink responsibly, people, please.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. That's definitely knocked my confidence for the semi-final. I think, you know, anything can happen in semi-finals. I'm pretty sure when we discussed the one back in 2018, we weren't, you know, I'm sure that the feeling wasn't one of confidence going into that game, but look what happened in the game itself. I think we can't be as brazen as we look to be at Ibrox. We've got to be a bit more balanced in our approach. Obviously, the news came out. I think it was on Monday night of the interest in the Tranmere right back, who we were interested in before we signed Jayden Richardson. Now, I believe that's a pre-contract rumour rather than a signing in January. So is that kind of maybe an indication that Jim Goodwin's already worried about Jayden going forward, or highlights it as a position of need? But I think it's quite interesting when you look at the Tranmere reaction to that rumour. It's one of a lot of fear and dread, whereas the Notts County fans didn't seem very fussed. I know that the guys that we talked to were just like, yeah, he needs a lot of work defensively. So I don't know, because again, you get carried away by it. You want us to go and have a go at Rangers, especially a semi-final, a chance to get to a cup final, win a trophy. That's what we want as fans is silverware. So we want our team to have a go, but we need to be a lot more measured in that approach. We absolutely cannot line up and give Rangers that amount of freedom and open space in midfield like we did, especially on a pitch the size of Hampden as well. We'll just get run ragged again. So I think that the point you made there about the fact that we played them again in December will maybe have a slight bearing in terms of hopefully giving us a bit of confidence. I just fear that if we get a doing in that game as well, then it'll be interesting. But the club better get the tickets on sale for that semi-final sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, because they're going to have some job to try and shift them, especially if the two results against each cheek is pretty similar in December.
Yeah, especially if it's a phase sale, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's not even get into it. But I would, hopefully we can approach the semi-final with a new right wing back and right-sided centre half. That's how I would hope we do approach things, because we do need to. It's so vital that that defence is fixed, because if we are going to, as you say, have a go at them, as you say, on a massive pitch at Hampden, then when we are under the cosh, it's vital that we don't give away the cheapest of goals, as well as 10 other opportunities and a penalty which they missed, because we'll just get punished and embarrassed once again, and it could be even worse this time.
I just wonder then, kind of going on the points that both Greg and Christopher made then, do you think then, the 3-5-2 formation has been working in the games, admittedly against poorer opposition than Rangers. Do you think then that we maybe need to look at a formation that works to come up against teams that can hurt us more than say teams that we really should be competing and beating?
Yes, I think if you go into every game with the same sort of game plan in this country, in any country really, you're gonna get punished when it comes up, because you simply can't play the same way against Dundee United, Livingston, whoever. I don't know why I said Dundee United, because they papped us as well.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? The slightly lesser sides in the league, you can't play the same way against them than going to Ibrox, going to Celtic Park against one of them at Hampden, or to be fair, even a side like Hibs away from home. You can't go into those games and play the same way. And it's all well and good, perhaps setting out with a different mentality but the same shape. But if our shape's set up and it's likely to be exposed against theirs, then there has to be options. There has to be that option for versatility, and also plan B, plan C for in games if they're tweaking things as well, which they're bound to at times.
Yeah, no, I fully agree.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Stuart Fisher asked, can the inconsistency and naivety be put down to a young team? And as well as that, is Goodwin showing a lack of experience at this level? Should we cut him some slack this season, perhaps, if we stay between sort of top 3 and 5?
I'll go the second point first. I think we can cut him a bit of slack if he stays in the top 3 to 5, yes. because I think ultimately he'll be cut some slack from the board if he finishes in that positions, purely because we know how much European football means to the chairman, especially. Although I know obviously he wants to see silverware returning to Pittodrie, but in terms of a financial benefit, especially with the new stadium plans and funding for that, European football is a huge bonus. So I think he'll be cut slack from that side of things. But I don't think he'll be cut slack from the fans based on level of performance. I think he is right to receive the criticism that he received after the Hibs game, similarly this weekend, the criticism that was put the way of the club after the Dundee United game as well. I think they've been rightly lauded for some of the positive performances. There's certainly no arguing we've been better going forward this season. But he does come away with sound bites that throw up question marks. The fixing the defence was going to be the easiest task. The comments made in his post-match interview as well at the weekend, he doesn't help himself at times. So I think that's why it's easy for fans, especially in the heat of the moment at full time after defeats to teams that we don't like losing to. It's easy for us to have a knee-jerk reaction to. So I think I do agree that he'll be cut slack if we do stay in the top 3 to 5, but I don't think that means he should be devoid of any criticism on the back of poor performances. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think I want to finish third. I want us to finish third. If we finish in 4th or 5th as well and get that European football, maybe perhaps another trip to Hampden, whether that's in the League Cup or in the Scottish Cup as well, and also depending on the performances there, I think I'll be content.
I think you've got to look at where we were last season as well.
And when it's a whole new squad essentially,
and these key words of work in progress, etc.
I know, but I think we do have to cut some slack there. I think it is really hard because at times, for example, you do see what all these players are capable of, and I think everyone does get carried away with that, myself absolutely included, and then that makes the disappointment of when the consistency is not there even greater. But it is hard to stick with that understanding of the likes of Duke. He's come over from Benfica B, barely played in the first team. Barely played any sort of men's football, if you like. He's coming over to a new country. Miovski, similar, brand new country, still very young players. And all these players sort of coming together. It is hard to sort of cut them that slack when they go and lose 4-0 away at Tannadice. But I think when push comes to shove at the end of the season, that will be afforded. It is very topsy-turvy right now. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think you're right. That last point's spot on. It'll be afforded at the end of the season, but in the heat of the moment, it's not acceptable. But I think it's an interesting point you make there about the players that are coming in. So the original point you said from Stuart was about the inconsistency and naivety being put down to a young team. I think it's actually more down to them coming in from different countries and maybe not being used to Scottish football environment. Again, there were some question marks around Majowski's performance away from home and what he offered compared to the amount of touches he had. I think he had double the amount of touches that Duke had. Yet I saw someone saying that Duke was more effective with his minimal touches. I can kind of see the point about it being naivety on the young side, but I feel it's more that these players are coming in. I think Jim Goodwin references a lot to they're maybe not used to playing for a club with the expectation levels of a fan base like Aberdeen. I think the inconsistency has also been down to a bit of kind of changes in formation, the injuries that we've had, Ross McCrory having to move to defence and still trying to struggle to maybe work out our best team. Did we stumble across the 3-5-2 to be right? Maybe. So I'd maybe put it more down to kind of tactics and injuries for the inconsistency, but naivety possibly down to young team, possibly down to the inexperience around Scottish football and dealing with the expectation of our fan base.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And to use examples of Ramadani and Miovski, just them to alone. I think it's clear to see they have got the quality to be a success in this league, and certainly in Miovski's case, beyond this, well beyond this, if he can sort of develop the consistencies and things like that. However, they were signed from MTK Budapest, who were relegated from the Hungarian league, and that's a league where the champions, Ferencváros, lost both times to Celtic in Europa League. I saw them play, decent level, but certainly not as good as probably Celtic or, well, certainly not Rangers last season either. And that was the team that won the league, not one of the teams that got relegated. So in terms of the intensity and the quality in general all round, I think it will take some getting used to, especially when there's not only them, there's, you got Jadon Richardson at right back, who whether he'll ever be good enough is a question for another day, or perhaps later on.
Yeah, there's a lot of comments about him, but
exactly.
Yeah.
You got likes of him, Duke. I mean, Anthony Stewart, who's played basically his whole career at Wycombe Wanderers in sort of League Two, League One, then Championship. All of them coming together to attempt to, make a big mark in this league immediately from the off. It's going to be tough, and it's hard to try and remember that. And I'm as guilty as anyone for being absolutely livid with the performances, but we just kind of have to keep reminding ourselves whether that'll happen. I'm sure it'll come at the end of the season, but I'm sure knee-jerk reactions will continue. Anything else to add on that particular question, Glenn, at all?
No, I think I'm good, and I think it was a very good question, especially about the cutting him slack come the end of the season as well.
Yep, okay. Happy to move on then. Chris Robertson said, fans need to give the manager time. He needs at least 3 windows, and not all signings are going to work. What is your thoughts on that statement, Glenn?
The fans need to give the manager time. The fans won't give the manager time if we see the levels of performances, but also the manager needs at least 3 windows. I don't know if the chairman will give the manager 3 windows if we don't see, kind of a decent level of consistency. I heard Willie Miller speaking, I think must have been after the Partick Thistle game, because that was the last time I listened to that show, because at least Richard Gordon was on it. But he said that, Dave Cormack ultimately wants trophies there. It's all well and good, being at the top end of the league, but it's only going to fly for so long unless we can produce silverware. So I think if we're struggling in the league and not doing anything in terms of the cup competitions, fans aren't going to be happy, but neither is the chairman as well, because ultimately, the last experiment didn't work. This one needs to work, but will he be afforded 3 windows? I think a few folks said he needs to be given at least a season, which is probably fair to say, but we need to start learning lessons from defeat.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I would probably agree with Chris in that we saw the type of players he can recruit in summer.
Is he recruiting them, or is Darren Mowbray bringing them to him?
We'll come to that. We'll put it this way,
we'll come to that question next. Then
Duke and Miovski are already in. That's 2 success stories. There is other players who have performed very well in there, Ramadani, and that's from the first transfer window when he'd been in the door sort of for a few months prior to getting in there. January, probably notoriously hard to recruit, I think, especially with the likes of the visa complications that we had with our players coming in summer. So with another summer transfer window on top of that, if we can carry on with players like that coming in, I think we could be in a very good spot, but that's providing that the players that have come in already show us an improvement. It needs to be minimum top 6 and ideally top 3 to 5 to qualify for Europe this season, to show that we are moving in the right direction. And I think then fans will maybe give him a little bit more leeway and be quite happy going into the second season with him still there if he continues to recruit the same way. But you mentioned, we'll come on to the next one. It was from Carol Innes about whether it was Mowbray or Goodwin. She says, recruitment's been very mixed. Was that down to Mowbray or Jim Goodwin? How much say does the latter have? And does he suggest players for Mowbray, or is Mowbray actively scouting? And then there's a second point which we'll then come on to just after.
Yeah. I I do wonder how much, say, Goodwin does have, because I suppose the club's model now is around developing talent for profit. Is that being driven by Cormac as well as Goodwin, or is it specifically more Cormac? I'm sure Mowbray is out there actively scouting talent. You look at the signing of Aaron Reid from Turriff. I'm not saying Darren Mowbray's sitting watching Highland League games, but I don't see Jim Goodwin be going to watch Turriff United play and go, yeah, I'm wanting this boy in my squad from January. But I do hope that Jim has his eye on a few players, if this guy from Tranmere is one of them, and he is asking Darren to go and do the scouting, or Darren's getting that subcontracted out to one of his scouts to do the work. So, because there's nothing worse than you being the manager of a team and you having no say in the players that are coming in. But yeah, I think it's fair to say the recruitment has been mixed, and I think that goes back to the point that Chris makes. Not all signings are going to work. That's absolutely right. Some will take to Scottish football like a duck to water, and some will
like a duke to water.
There we go. Good to see you've not lost your sense of humour. It's normally me that does the puns as well. Very good, Calum.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, no, I hope Mowbray and Gunn aren't having the kind of final say on players, and that Jim Goodwin is taking something to the table as well.
Well, certainly from the interview with Stephen Gunn that Graham Hunter did, and just from my knowledge of football in general, maybe from manager, I think I'm led to believe that it's a case of Goodwin going, this is the type of player I want for this position, this position, this position, this position. That information then passed on to Mowbray, and Mowbray comes back with candidates that he feels and his team feels fit each of the moulds that Jim Goodwin wants. For example, presumably with the right back, they wanted an athletic fullback going forward, and hence we've ended up with Jayden Richardson. And then Jim Goodwin presumably has the final say based on what's available and what's most realistic, which he then presumably works with Stephen Gunn for, and he's the man to cut out the finer details of the deal. And yes, certainly some signings will not work. I presume Jayden Richardson was perhaps the best available for the budget that was available for a right back, and I suppose to a degree fits the mould of young player, and if he has room to improve and he can get better, then maybe we can view him as a sellable asset further down the line. We're yet to see much progress on that front, but maybe time will tell. I know a lot of people are skeptics, and I agree, but I suppose we'll see. However, Carol did also ask, there's a large wage bill. Are we getting a value for money right now? How do you feel about that?
I assume she's meaning value for money on the pitch from the players we've signed. I think that kind of ties into a bit of the question that Jonathan Main asked us, so I think I'll leave my answer till that part.
Wow, very mysterious. That's good.
Very political.
Thanks very much. Back to question from Willie Beattie then, for going by the order of our notes. I like doing things in an organised fashion, as I'm sure you can all tell. He said, the reaction to conceding a goal away from home, not good enough on and off. I'm confused by this. Reaction to conceding a goal away from home, not good enough on and off the pitch.
On and off the pitch, yeah.
That's your notes, that's the problem with
not you.
Sorry. Don't worry. Which is a negative, of course. The positive after the game against Rangers is a lot better in the final third. Failed to score in 2 league games. Glenn, you're going to have to give us a little bit about...
Yeah, so basically,
down here.
Willie's negative is the fact that our reaction to conceding goals away from home hasn't been good enough on and off the pitch. And we've been a lot better in the final third this season, not just at Ibrox. And the fact that we've only failed to score in 2 league games. Right. So, yeah.
Thank you.
This
Why
is what
not just write that then?
I was very much on a time limit this morning.
Right, whatever. Yeah. Right, okay. What did you make of at that point from Willie? I'm so confused.
I think he's right. The reaction to how we concede away from home, and I think if you look at the games, Tannadice, Hibs, and obviously this weekend, they're the worst defeats that we've had, have not been good enough. Celtic Park's another one where I think we kind of maybe just put our heads down and really struggled to implement ourselves. Obviously, we conceded really early in that game as well. Didn't help. But I think his point more on off the pitch is interesting. We've obviously touched on it already in this episode that Jim Gooden's really slow to react to conceding it, more so away from home as well. And I think it maybe kind of goes back to one of the points that we discussed earlier about maybe the way we set up as well. Again, going back to the reaction, we don't react in terms of changing things in the team, formation-wise, player-wise as well. But yeah, certainly I kind of agree on that negative, and I also do agree on the positive that we are looking a lot better in the final third. And, you know, my ex-flatmate Finlay did text me, said, I guess we're in a bit of catch-22. We did ask to be more entertaining, which we arguably are this season, certainly going forward, but we're just horribly open at the back.
Yeah, that's largely down to Duke. However, on the main, I agree, and let's move on from that shambles that I'll take my responsibility partial.
Yes, I'll also put my hands up and accept that I did wrong. See, look, it's easy to do.
Okay, let's hope the next one's better. You've spelt Craig wrong in the notes, so that's a good start. Craig Wettingham. Is the manager capable of seeing the changes needed, or is he stubborn? It is costly either way. Does he recognise the frailties of the defence, or is it stubbornness because of his signings and decisions he made on players? Right.
I don't know. I've always said Jim Goodwin's been stubborn, and I think I'm going to stand by that as well. I don't think he is capable of seeing the changes needed, or if he is capable of seeing it, he reacts too late. And Craig's right, it's costly. We've seen it too many times this season. We say it on the show, people say it on social media, but Jim Goodwin continues to fail to react. And yeah, it's costing us. He needs to do better on that front. And I don't know if he does recognise the frailties or if he's just playing with the hand he's been dealt. But he said it was easy to fix, and I'm not seeing that. But is he just playing these players because he signed them? Possibly. I think we were asked on YouTube as well by Stephen McPhee, would Vinny Bizaouin be a suitable right wing back? I don't know how you feel about that. Shaking your head, I'm going to say that's a no then. But you've got Matty Kennedy's played in that role as well. Could we be looking at moving other players around to help that? Or is it because, as Craig says, that stubbornness is coming through because he signed Jayden Richardson, so feels he has to play him in that position?
I mean, there's little other choice other than to play Jayden Richardson, in my opinion. I think Bizaouin would be a disaster. He's tiny, not particularly good defensively, not his defensive work rate's not at the highest. Matty Kennedy, however, is an option I would consider. I think his work rate is perhaps maybe a bit better defensively. And then his height, you said you criticised Vinny on, so he's probably lacking in that as well. Yeah, but he's slightly better, I think, maybe by an inch or two. But I don't know. Well, Vinny knows. Matty maybe see how it goes. I think he absolutely is stubborn in terms of the changes, because surely he can see when everyone else can see the facts. We're 3-1 down at Ibrox. With Rangers having missed a penalty, and then he makes his changes. So potentially 4-1 down, and before he makes changes at Ibrox. Yeah, unacceptable. It has to be. I don't know what I'd rather, whether it was stubbornness or not capable. I'd probably rather it was stubbornness, because if he can't see it and he's not capable of making the changes, then that is a real worry. And I think maybe, I guess, to a degree, if he's stubborn, then at least he believes in his players, even if he's wrong, and he believes in himself, even if he's wrong. So I think I'd prefer that, and I think it probably is more likely that way. But I would like to see it change one way or another, whatever it is, because I agree with Craig, absolutely. It is absolutely costly. Massive.
Or Cryag, as I've called him in the
Right, yes,
watches. Yeah.
absolutely. And now you've spelt Craig further down correctly,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
good. Craig Taylor, he said, we seem lightweight with a soft spine. Why? We need to commit to playing one system and give the fullbacks the wing backs time to fit into it. Do you agree with that? First of all, second point, and then we'll give our thoughts on the lightweight stuff.
I think we've actually touched on that second point inadvertently already. I can see where Craig's coming from about committing to one playing system, but I think we saw this weekend that playing that system doesn't necessarily work week in, week out. But I also possibly agree on that point about giving the fullbacks, wing backs, whatever role we put for them, time to fit into the role. Obviously, we've had to chop and change, certainly on the left this season with Hayden Coulson and Jack McKenzie with injuries and missing out for birth of children. Jaden Richardson, obviously performance, he missed out in the League Cup against Partick Thistle. Similarly, even in defence with Ross McCrory, I do think we need to kind of build that solid base in defence. Probably feel I'd rather stick with the same back four, back five, and give that more time rather than the playing system. Because I think, we've already kind of covered it, Calum, that I don't think we can afford to play that same system week in, week out. We're just gonna get exposed by either better quality teams or teams will quickly latch on to how to beat us.
I mean, instead of switching between a 4 and a 5, you could stick with the 5 and I suppose make it more of a flat 5 in games against Rangers. I suppose that is an option, whereas you'll just accept that their fullbacks are going to come bombing forward as well as their wingers, and maybe we're then in a better position to deal with it with a 2-on-2 situation more than anything else. I think maybe that perhaps, because then in games where we're going to be more positive, it's easier with players with a better understanding of played with each other in a 5 for simply say, fullbacks, you've got more authority to bomb forward and more license to go forward and be creative, and set it with that way, where it's then more of a 3 centre backs and 2 wing backs rather than a flat 5. But whether we'll see if we stick with that, because also on the flip side against Rangers, you could maybe have argued that you might have been wanting McCrory's physicality in the middle of the park, which I don't know, because that would have helped out with our being lightweight and having a soft spine. That might have helped if we've got a more physical presence with McCrory's tenacity in the middle of the park.
Yeah, and I just wonder on that point about the lightweight is because we've got Ramadani in there alongside Clarkson and Barron in recent weeks. Scales and Stewart, are they really solid? I'm not fully convinced. There's ways to exploit that. So, I think it's actually a fair point. And again, maybe why we have that soft spine goes back to the point that Stuart Fisher made about the young team. Maybe there's just a bit of that naivety and inexperience that we commented on as well. So possibly that's why it's a bit soft. But would that be improved with Ross McCrory in midfield? I'm not sure.
I think against teams where we're probably favourites to win, McCrory being in the defence is quite good, because then you've got him and Scales, who are both capable of playing out from the back, and then it gives the sort of wing backs more license to bomb forward. But it's an interesting one, and I don't know if we do seem to have a little bit lightweight, and I think it is probably down to, as you said, the naivety and things like that. Players like John Lundstrom, for example, they know how to play a win game. What is he? 29, 30 years old, 30 years old. In a big game like that, he knows exactly how to play it. But we'll see if that improves with time and more games like this. We'll see how those games in December go, and likewise the semi-final. But we've mentioned him a lot in this show. Mr. Jaden Richardson at Chris Lives or Chris Lives, one of the two. Don't know if it's a second name or if he's telling us about how he lives. I apologise. What to do about a right back in January? We've heard a lot about the Tranmere Rovers right back, whose name escapes me because it's quite a long one. But should we spend big, or perhaps get the best loanee? I suppose, as another alternative, agree to sign him on a pre-contract and hope that after that happens, Tranmere will maybe shift down their asking price to let him come in January, considering they'll lose out in summer for free.
Spend big's probably where I'm leaning towards because I can't deal with any more lone player heartbreak.
Okay, I think that's fair. It depends.
Spend big, obviously, like going towards the point you just made about the Tranmere right back as well.
Yeah, okay.
Because I'm not having this, like, we sign him on a pre-contract and then waste fixtures in January and he signs for us on deadline day. If we're going to go for him in January, just go all out. Let's not drag it out.
I suppose. Or
get Michael Hector back.
Well, yes, I suppose. I don't know how much wiggle room we'll have to spend big, given what was already spent in the summer, but so it depends on what Dave Cormack will view as what's required to spend to reach the goals, given how the first half of the season's gone. If there is a right back available on loan, that's not playing at their club, who are obviously a bigger club than us, then I wouldn't be against sort of putting it in a stopgap, especially if we do get the Tranmere player as a pre-contract and they're still being widos about it. I wouldn't be against that, but ideally a permanent right back obviously would be fantastic, and maybe we'd see Jane Richardson kick on then. However, on this Tranmere right back, considering the way their fans are reacting, I'm a little bit more enthused. However, still not convinced by a player at that level, because how many sort of English journeymen have we seen come up to here and be very good in recent years? And that goes under McInnes as well as Glass and Jim Goodman so far. But it's an interesting one. I think it's clear we will see someone come in on that side, and we'll see how that goes come January, or maybe even before then, given we've got the break. Hopefully they'll be working vigorously on targets to improve us so we can get players in as early as possible. But 1903 Calum asked, which formation is best for us, which we've sort of already discussed to a degree, but where should we be looking to strengthen in January other than right back, given what we've just said?
Yeah, I think on the first part, I'll say the 3-5-2 is best for us in probably about 80-90% of the games, but the rest of the time we need to be able to adapt. I think if we've got our best squad, I certainly think I like the look of that 3-5-2 because it's certainly been better having the two up top option. Where should we be looking to strengthen in January? I think we should be looking to tie down Liam Scales on a permanent deal as well, strengthening up that centre defence, because otherwise that's another job for the summer. We've got quite a lot of wingers just now, but how many of them are actually any good and useful to this squad?
Yeah. I mean, we're not even playing with wingers at the moment, really, either.
Yeah. I don't know why I feel like we need another centre mid, because I'm not overly convinced by Leighton Clarkson in there. I like what he does, but is he physical enough? I'm not sure. And then maybe need another left-sided player, left-sided midfielder, because Johnny Hayes ain't getting any younger and we can't keep relying on him as well.
Fair enough. I would probably say certainly right back. Yeah, we know that. Right-sided centre back, if we're going to stick with the three, that is because
allows McCrory to go into midfield.
Then it maybe allows McCrory to go into midfield, and then maybe we don't need another centre mid. Failing signing a centre midfielder, failing signing a right-sided centre back, which I think is clearly essential because I don't like McCrory as a midfielder, as a defender, centre back, whatever. Even though he is versatile, oh god, it's been a tough one. Then a centre mid, because then the requirement for McCrory midfield is not as essential. But I don't know what type of midfield player, because he clearly needs to be probably more physical than the likes of Clarkson. But at the same time, you don't really want another Ramadani in there, because then maybe we lack creativity. It'll be interesting. I think for forward players, we're probably okay right now, having spent a good amount of money on the likes of Duke Miovski and Shane Morris, I don't see us spending more money.
Yeah, but then I was going to say on the forward players, it maybe depends on what happens with Christian Ramirez. But obviously, I know we've signed Aaron Reid, and I was impressed by Stephanie Daly asking Jim Goodwin about Lewis Pirrie, of course, scoring the winner for the Scotland under-16s in the Victory Shield tonight. I know there's some Premier League teams sniffing around him as well. So only 15 years old, and he obviously can't play until he's 16 for the first team. But you've also got Alfie Bavidge as well, who's been in fine goal scoring form as well. If they're, what's that saying? If they're old enough, they're good enough, whatever it is. If they're young enough, they're good enough. Or
if they're good enough, they're old enough. There we go.
Got there eventually. Yeah,
Liam Harvey as well, I suppose, too, and Marley Watkins.
Of course. Yeah. So I think we're top heavy enough to see us through to the end of the season.
So there we go. I think that probably just about covers it. At BR1MCG. Thanks very much. Thank you very much. Why does Goodwin continue to set us up away from home like if we are playing at Pittodrie? Which we sort of mentioned earlier on, but it's a very good question because he absolutely does do that. And it's clear to see the difference in when we're at Pittodrie, when we're expected to win games. Hearts, for example, even them, even though they had a few injuries and things like that, we set up very positive and it was effective eventually. We got our rewards. And then, going to Dundee United, even then, when it's horrendous and, giving up 3 points in an embarrassing fashion. Glenn, I'll chuckle.
Yeah. He keeps coming away with the, he wants to put on entertaining football for the fans and keep them happy. But there's a fine balance of entertaining us and getting the 3 points.
Yeah.
I think there's, cases where I would rather us scrap a 1-0 win than see us try and play entertaining football and get papped 4-0.
Yeah. I mean, if we're at home against Livingston, I'd like to see us be as entertaining as possible, free-flowing attacking football, plenty goals. And even then, if we do end up giving up 1 or 2, as long as we've scored more than them, I'm happy. Away from home, I'd much rather we just got the result if it meant, we played the most anti-football, kicking everything above grass fashion at all. As long as we get the points, I wouldn't care.
And on that last point, 1 booking when we're getting scudded at Ibrox.
Yeah, eventually it did end up being 3, but it was after I mentioned it. I think it was 2. I think it was Duncan and Coulson as well, 2 substitutes.
I'd already switched off by that point by the time they got moved anyway.
Yeah. So Ramadani and then Coulson and Duncan eventually joined in right after I tweeted that. So
Duncan very lucky not to get his leg broken as well.
Oh, I didn't see that. So that's great news. Thankfully he's okay.
It was Liam Scales as well.
Just on Ryan Duncan, would you like to see him play some more first team football right now? Because we've seen him in fits of starts. He's come on and affected games pretty positively. Scored a couple of goals. What are your thoughts, just quickly?
Why not? There you go.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'd be happy, I think.
Straight into the point.
Yeah, fair enough. Graham G. Stephen Glass, with this squad, would have us playing more consistently and in third. This was a very, very controversial one. But I think fair to at least ask the question, maybe not make the statement, but ask the question. What are your thoughts?
I felt this needed to be put in purely because I think this was the one, along with Jonathan Main's question, that generated the most interactions. And I really did enjoy Paul Selby's response saying he would have needed us to get promoted from the Championship before we could be speaking about that. I don't know. Would we have signed some of the players with Stephen Glass in the first place, I think is the first question, first and foremost, to put there. I don't know. Hindsight's a wonderful thing on these sort of things. I don't think you can compare the two. They've both got different styles, but I think it was interesting to note. I think I read somewhere that we only ever conceded 3 goals under Stephen Glass once, and we've already done it on multiple occasions under Jim Goodwin. Similar thing. There's a similar sort of stat about how many games we often lost by more than 1 goal as well. And I think I'm right in saying that we've conceded the second most amount of goals this season in the Premiership, which is quite alarming when Dundee United shipped 9. So Stephen Glass did certainly defend. His team was certainly defended better, but whether he could get the same sort of attacking intent out of this team, I'm not sure.
Do you think his team defended better? Remember, I think
Statistically, his team defended better than Jim Goodwin's team.
But remember some of the bloody goals we conceded last season.
Have you seen some of the goals we've conceded this season?
Well, yeah, that's a fair point. I suppose if he had this squad, then he would perhaps have better defenders than the likes of Declan Gallagher. But I think his recruitment also was pretty horrendous. I know he didn't quite have the same setup as Goodwin has now. But it's cost us a lot of money to not only sign some of these players, but get rid of them too.
Under the manager, I'm sure.
I'm not convinced by that point. It'd be interesting. It certainly would be interesting, but I don't know. He was maybe even more naive as a manager than Jim Goodwin, despite some of the attributes pointing and the statistics pointing the other way. But it was certainly a point that divided opinion,
to say the least.
Yeah, to say the least. But moving on from Graham with an E to Graham with an H. Graham McWilliam. You're welcome for that. What do the players practice during training? First of all, I don't think we know the answer, and I think I share the same question as them, because surely Jim Goodwin, as an ex-defender, should be well versed on how to stop shipping goals, and he's not, basically.
He's not. He's not. But it is an interesting question, and hopefully they are practicing how to not ship goals ahead of Friday night's game against Hibs. And I think it's a fair question to ask. I know there was a question from Shelty Dawn about have we improved since we've moved to Cormac Park, but I feel that's one for another day and could be argued on and on. What do the players practice during training? Fuck knows, to be honest. It doesn't seem like a lot, certainly not defending. Maybe how to score goals, because we're doing a lot of that this season. Yeah,
social media morale. That's my suggestion, because we seem all very pally. That's at least one thing. Hopefully if we saw the same togetherness which we've seen at times on the pitch as we do on social media, then I'd be a very happy boy. I think that would be fantastic. But I think that is a very fair question. What do the players practice during training? Because it's certainly not defending, and it's not defending set pieces / throw-ins especially as well. Because we've been very poor. But
well, they certainly don't defend work on taking throw-ins either.
No, absolutely not. But I think I'm going to hand back over to you, Glenn. I felt like I've been a radio host, being in charge of asking the questions, and I've very much enjoyed it. I hope you also enjoyed it. I hope if you did, you watch on YouTube, like and subscribe, follow us wherever else, and all that stuff. Glenn, back to you in the studio.
Yeah, thank you very much. Back to you over in another country. I'm just glad that the thunder and lightning that I'm experiencing hasn't affected the episode so far today. But yes, we've saved the best to last. And again, another one that's generated a lot of interest and divided opinion was Jonathan Main, regular listener to the show, asked us to rate our summer signings as hit or missed based on the evidence so far, and also give Jim Goodwin a mark out of 10 for this season so far. Now, Jonathan has gone on to based his own scores on whether they've improved the team from last season or not. So, as he said, a pretty low bar, to be honest. So what we'll do, Calum, is we'll go through player by player. So Jonathan's, because obviously maybe some of the people that tune into our show are not on social media and have not seen the tweet and Jonathan's scores. So what I'll do is I'll give Jonathan's rating, whether it's a hit or a miss, and then we'll discuss whether we agree or not.
Okay.
So Keller Rose, he has said is a miss. Agree or disagree?
I disagree. He certainly has places to improve on, but Joe Lewis also did, and I think we are slightly better with Keller Rose. He's come up with some fantastic saves. I think he'll still improve the more he gets used to players he's playing with as well. What about your good self?
See, this one, I'm really kind of on the fence. I agree to an extent with Jonathan's point of view, because I think some of the goals he could have done better for, in certainly the ones we've conceded. But I think overall, I'm going to agree with your point that he has been a hit, because I think we can see that there is a goalkeeper there. Yes, he has his shady, dodgy moments, but don't a lot of keepers. And yeah, he has been an improvement and will obviously be here for a while yet as well, especially now that his missus is playing for Aberdeen and obviously scoring at the weekend. Yes, indeed. Yes, there we go. Jaden Richardson, I don't think this one will be a long discussion. Jonathan says it's a miss, and I think it's fair to say we both agree.
Yes, I do. I had to give him a rating out of 10. I'd give him a 4 because I think there's room for improvement and maybe we'll see him come good. But yes, for now, certainly miss.
No, I wouldn't even go as high as 4. Anthony Stewart, Jonathan also goes with a miss with that. I feel like we're playing battleships here. What's your thoughts on the captain?
As a captain, I would say miss. As a player, I would say hit. So far,
why a miss on the captain?
I just don't know if we see enough leadership qualities. He doesn't sound as the type that would lead a team into battle, kind of thing. But as a defender right now, he's probably hit. I think he was the best of a very bad bunch at Ibrox, certainly.
Yeah, I don't think he deserves some of the criticism. I just feel he's been scapegoated now for the season. Yeah. I think some of the criticism his way from the weekend was unwarranted.
Yeah, I think as a ball-playing defender, he'll never ever be that. But if you place him alongside one and he's in there to defend the box and hopefully not be passed the ball to, then he's very, very effective. How many headers does he win in a game? Absolutely loads. Balls into the box seem to be his bread and butter. So does long balls, and that's despite not being particularly tall. So I'm going hit for now.
Yeah, and so am I, purely based on his ability in the air.
Yeah,
I would say he's a miss in terms of ball playing, but as we were told by the Wycombe Way, as we keep saying, that's not his game. So no real surprises on that front for me. But overall, in terms of the strengths of his game, I think he's been a hit. I can see why Jonathan's said miss totally. We already argued the point about statistically this defence has been worse than last season's in terms of goals conceded. But interestingly, though, he's gone for Liam Scales as being a hit. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, probably. I think he's got plenty of room for improvement still, but he's not started too much in this league. I think he's got a bit of a tough ask in terms of being the key ball player. I'm going to stick with hit for now, but it's just because I've not been as impressed as I thought I was maybe going to be with Liam Scales.
He's a hit for me as well, but would be more of a hit if he was our own player.
Yes, I'd absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. Hayden Coulson, hit or a miss. Steve Coulson as well, big hit.
Oh yeah, Steve, massive hit. That's the biggest hit of the lot.
Yeah.
Great man. Hayden Coulson, I would say probably a hit. A bit annoying some games he's missed. However, some of them not his fault at all. I'd say hit. He certainly looks good going forward. I think defensively he's better than Jaden Richardson on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish he sometimes would stop dicking about on the edge of our box at Ibrox when we're losing so much and then lose the ball. That's something I would like him to cut out. Yeah.
It didn't exactly have a huge outcome on the game anyway, but I can see why you feel like that. For me, hit, an improvement on Andy Constantine at left back. Sorry.
Fucking watch him out.
I think it would be a bigger hit if he signed a permanent contract as well. I know he's out of contract in the summer, so for me, bigger hit. If we could tie him down for next season, I can see why some people would maybe say would have their doubts on him. I know obviously that the injury concerns people have around him and his fitness, but if we can get him to stay fit, stay healthy, and sign, I think he'll be a big hit.
Yeah, I think maybe if he bulks up a little bit as well for the physicality in the Scottish Premiership too.
Yeah. Gilbert Ramadani, the Albanian midfielder, hit or a miss?
Hit. I just love him, to be honest. I don't think I can add much more than that. He is very passionate. I think we see that in the way he plays. He gives us a good base in that midfield, certainly at times anyway. I'm going with a big hit, and I can't wait to see him hit the back of the net and watch him go mental.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say I can't wait to see him hit Ryan Porteous on Friday night.
Oh yes, that's well.
If he hits the back of the net on Friday night, yeah, I can't wait to see him score as well, especially in front of the red shed as well. I think he's going to lose his shit, but yeah, agreed. Hit. We'll move on to Leighton Clarkson, the on-loan Liverpool midfielder. Hit or miss?
Hit. Couple of good goals in there. I think he offers some very good technical abilities that sometimes maybe perhaps you otherwise lack. Lightweight, unfortunately, not the tallest. However, I think as a lone player, as a little bit of a creative option if you're struggling as well, certainly a hit. And I mean, he gave us the win against St Johnstone away from home. So anyone that gives us a win away from home, hit.
This one I'm really torn on because you could argue he's a hit based on that winner, as you said. But other than his goals, what else has he offered us this season?
Well, you could say the same about Miovski, I suppose, really, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could. That's a very fair point. We're going to come on to him as well. But I think his physicality in midfield, I think he often goes missing at times for large parts.
You could say the same about Miovski, couldn't you?
Yeah. I think I'm going to go miss, but just.
Wow, you suck. Let's move on.
To Bojan Miovski.
Hit. I mean, yeah, sometimes maybe drifts in and out of games. Sometimes I think that's a lot of times this lack of service he's getting, I suppose, but I don't know if he's quite tall, a little bit too thin. I just think
like a fiver, as you said.
Yeah, I just think if he, I don't want him to just bulk up just to be in this league or whatever as well. But at the same time, I just think a little bit filling out if he can, maybe then use his height a little bit more to his advantage that way. But I mean, some of the goals he's scored, you see how good he is technically, and I've no doubt that he'll continue to do so, and will inevitably leave us heartbroken. So hit,
hit as well. Especially if we're comparing this to last season, I think it's a no-brainer. Obviously, there's question marks around what he's been offering us away from home, Motherwell away aside, but especially if we're comparing this to last season, there can be no argument about this being a hit, which takes us on to another inevitable hit. The man from Cape Verde that has won the hearts of the city of Aberdeen is Luis Duque Lopez. It's a hit. I think we just move on, yeah?
Yeah, entertaining, scores goals, goes mental when he does, hit.
Yeah, and then I'm going to club them together because I think there's no point in dragging this out. Is Shayden Morrison, Calum Roberts, where would you put them?
Miss. Injury prone Calum Roberts. Not seeing Shayden Morris at all, and we have not been too impressed.
Yeah. I think we forgot to say that Jonathan rated Leighton Clarkson as a hit, obviously did the same for Miovski and Duke, and he agrees with you that has Morris and Roberts as miss. I think, Morris.
I think they could come good, but
Morris is a miss because he has been missing when he's been playing, and Calum Roberts, I think we can only put down as a miss because we've only seen him for, was it less than half an hour in an Aberdeen shirt, and that's only based on this season, but let's hope that he does come good when he does play. Shayden Morris, the less said about that, the better, especially the fact that we paid for him.
He's only young, but yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, but so's Ryan Duncan, and I'd rather see him.
Fair enough. I can't really argue that anymore.
No. So that was the question from Jonathan Main. Do you agree with Jonathan's points on the signings? I know that's been a hot topic, especially in the comments over on YouTube from a couple of you that tune in over there. What are your ratings on the signings? Please do let us know. A lot of you have been doing so on social media as well. We hope you enjoyed this format. We hope we don't have to do it often enough on the back of embarrassing defeats, but we thought we'd try something different. Thank you to everyone that interacted with that. Thank you to your questions. It certainly provided us something different. But what is not different is Michael Monan joining us to preview the Hibs game, and he joined me earlier this evening to look ahead to Friday Night Football.
Mikey.
Well, Michael, welcome back to Red Tinted Glasses. It seems that whenever you're on the show, I flee the country, but good to have you back with us. Well, with us, it's just me tonight interviewing because Calum's busy. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, you seem to be doing a lot of globetrotting and Hibs are playing Aberdeen, but yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah,
Just
making sure that
missing Calum, obviously, but we'll have to do without him.
Yeah, we'll have to do without him. I have made sure that my travel arrangements with work do get me back in time for Friday's game, albeit the weather forecast for flying on Thursday night doesn't look great just now, so hopefully there's no delays or cancellations. Maybe I've jinxed that. Obviously, the last time the two teams met, Michael, there was a bit of controversy, it's fair to say, around Liam Scales and Ryan Porteous, the penalty and subsequent red card. Hopefully no controversy this time now that the game's going to be aided by VAR. We know how much that's not helped Ryan Porteous since its introduction. But how have things been going for Hibs since the time the last two sides met? Jesus, a tongue twister already. I haven't had a few beers tonight, honest.
Mixed, I would say. Mixed. We beat Hughes, then we beat Motherwell, and then we had a sort of blip of a week, 10 days or so with losing at Tannadice, despite I don't actually understand how we lost that game, but just one of those games. Got absolutely annihilated off Celtic and then got beat from our bogey team, St Johnstone. So, but it was good to get back to winning ways on Saturday there because Mr. Johnson has been given the unfortunate nickname of Streaky Lee from those down south. So 3 defeats on the bounce. It was good to make sure it wasn't 4. And then we actually managed to get back to winning ways. Yeah,
I like your use of just one of those nights for the defeat to Dundee United. It just seems to be the common phrase when you lose to Dundee United in an evening kickoff, doesn't it? One thing that's been a problem for Hibs this season has been, of course, that away form. You mentioned there the defeats to Dundee United and Celtic, places that Aberdeen have gone and lost as well. I mean, I don't really know why I'm speaking confidently because our away form's nothing to shout about just now. But Hibs have only won on the road in Dingwall this season. What's been the problem for Hibs away from home this season?
Well, we actually won against St Johnstone in the first game of the season.
Oh yeah, that handball as well.
When it hit off Rocky Bashir's face and went in. But yeah, two away games, 2 away victories are great, to be honest. I mean, 1 or 2 is still bad. But yeah, hopefully we can win on Friday to make it 3.
Yeah, so what would you say has been the issue for Hibs in general away from home? Why do you think there's been so much struggle on the road compared to at Easter Road this season?
Well, I think that just the initial sort of games was us just trying to bed into the squad a wee bit. So you're obviously going to get some kind of inconsistencies there. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the Dundee United game. It's the only reason we lost that game was because they scored and we never. And I know that's quite simple to say, but we should have won that game by a comfortable margin. It literally just was one of those nights. And then I think any team can get a doing at Celtic Park, to be honest. I wouldn't really count that one. But especially the initial sort of early games in the season away from home, it was just a case of, I think we were just trying to figure out players that were to play, because especially Livingston game, like some of the players that are playing there aren't even playing for us now. So
yeah, it's interesting that teams, when they're maybe forming newer teams, or you look at the case of both Aberdeen and Hibs this season, both seem to struggle away from home but seem to do better at home. And it seems to kind of be the tail of the tape with this fixture, that the home side tends to have the upper hand, and hopefully that continues this Friday. What's been your overall thoughts on Lee Johnson in recent weeks? Because it's fair to say some of his comments, especially in the aftermath of that defeat to Celtic, have really hit the headline. I know you're quite an outspoken Hibs fan, especially on social media after a defeat, like most fans tend to do. What's your general feeling on Lee Johnson? Because obviously Hibs currently occupying 3rd place. Are you still content with the job he's doing so far?
I like him. I do like him. Because even the games that we've lost, I can understand why he's done what he's done, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But doesn't mean he's what's what I'm looking for, like exempt from criticism. I just think that for his way to come across, it's going to take time, and you're going to have to just get beat in games that you probably shouldn't have lost in. But it's, I suppose, it's just part of the process. So I like him. Yeah.
Yeah, good use of word that Dave Cormack likes. One thing I wonder if you do like, though, is Friday night football. You might not have liked it, of course, a few weeks back when you lost to St Johnstone. I mean, what was that like at Easter Road? Good atmosphere. It certainly looked like, it certainly helped by the ticket prices. I know for this Friday, Hibs fans aren't being charged the prices they did against St Johnstone. But are you a fan of Friday night football?
Yep. I like it. I think it's a good initiative. I like the fact that, generally speaking, it's games that are quite, on paper anyway, should be quite close, like closely contested. I like the fact that it's so far anyway, teams that, because the games aren't on telly, it's good that it's encouraging people to go. And then when folk are being given the choice, sort of being made to make the decision that if you don't go, you're not going to see the game. It's encouraging people to actually go to the game, which I like. I think that's a good thing. Yeah,
and I guess then in that sense, Hibs bringing up a decent number this weekend, more than the Hearts fans, I'm sure, brought up on that Sunday game a few weeks ago. I know you like to get a jibe in about Hearts, and because I know you refuse to listen to our podcast when we have anyone of a Hearts persuasion on.
Yeah, I don't like that, but that's just my own neurosis. No, I think we have got a good crowd. Apparently, we'd sold it out quite quickly, but it was actually a fault of our ticket office, so the tickets went back on sale quite quickly. But I do think we'll have a good allocation. I'm not too sure how many we've got, like in terms of like how many tickets have been given, but
yeah.
I think, yeah.
And how do you view this game, and how do Hibs fans view this game going into this game? As I said, 1 point separating the two teams. I feel this is quite a big game with obviously the World Cup break coming up. It's an opportunity for both sides to kind of really kick on and look to maybe cement that third place in the league before the league does split up for the World Cup break.
Yeah, I mean, I think Friday will be a hard game for us, but after Friday, we've got two very winnable games before the split. So, the split for the World Cup anyway. But I think that, as you said, it's the home team seems to always win. The away fans get the trip, and the home fans win the game. It kind of seems how it works. But hopefully, we can buck the trend. And what will be the coldest stadium this side of the North Sea, I should imagine. Especially the way end anyway.
I'm sure it will be, although I know Dingwall can certainly get cold, but you don't get that breeze in off the North Sea that tickles the away fans. Although I'm sure you'll be well warmed up on the back of a few soft drinks on the way up the road. What do you think Lee Johnson will do for this game then, Michael? Do you think he will kind of have Hibs sitting in to frustrate Aberdeen, or look to exploit some of the weaknesses that we have defensively? Obviously, we saw how Rangers exploited that at the weekend just past. What do you think Lee Johnson will do in this game?
I think we'll play to our strengths. I think that we'll play to have a go. I mean, he likes to go and have a go. He did it at Celtic Park and it worked, but he tried. And obviously, Aberdeen do not possess the same level of threat as Celtic do. I think it's fair to say. I don't think I'm going to get too much attention in the comments for saying that, but so I think that I don't think we'll amend how we've been playing just to shoot Aberdeen or to try and to play around Aberdeen or whatever. I think we'll just play our own game.
Even though the fact that all the league games that we've won this season at home, and in fact all the games I think we've won at home this season have been by a 2-goal margin, you don't think that puts any doubt in Lee Johnson's mind to set up Hibs a bit more defensively to, obviously, as you said, we maybe don't have that firepower that Celtic possess, but we definitely have a threat at home, and we've been quite free scoring at home this season.
No, that's true. I'm not going to argue that fact, but I think that he'll know how we're best suited to play, and I think the best way we can play is by being attacking. I think when we try and defend, it never works. So I think we'll just sort of stick to our own game plan. I could be wrong, but I think that's what we'll do.
And do you think that's lining up in that 3-5-2, which obviously was very successful against St Mirren at the weekend?
Well, he tends to not change a winning team, which I like as well. So presuming Martin Boyle's okay, I think it'll be the same team.
And if Martin Boyle is not okay, which I'm hoping he is not, who do you see coming in? Because I noticed that Josh Campbell, who obviously was the 2-goal hero of the last time the two teams met, was on the bench for the weekend's game. Elias Melkson, whose Hibs career's not really kind of set alight as maybe Hibs fans were hoping it would. Do you expect him to maybe take the place of Martin Boyle and try and really put a mark down for a starting spot?
It wouldn't surprise me. He did well when he came on Saturday. He's been out with like a couple of knocks, so that's kind of why he's been playing. But I think he seems to be fine now. So I think if Martin Boyle wasn't to play, it would perhaps be a like for like.
And then what about another threat that Aberdeen fans have maybe got to be wary of this weekend is Hibs number 99, and I'm probably going to murder the pronunciation, but Mykola Kukarevic is how... Yeah, okay, well, we'll go with that then. What sort of threat does he pose to the Aberdeen defence?
He's a big unit. He's strong. A strong guy. He holds the ball up well. I'm pleased that he scored a goal on because he did score against St Johnstone, even though we had a 5-minute VAR check after to make sure it was all right. But his goal on Saturday was kind of just summed him up how his overall game. He held the ball up well. He pushed off Gogic and then put it in the far corner. It was a great goal, but he's been he's been a good focal point for us, I think. So
yeah, I suppose that maybe partnership with the hold-up play to then kind of let Martin Boyle run around him was something that Lee Johnson would be hoping to kind of use again this weekend. So I guess that kind of hinges on his fitness as well. But what about the fullback position? I guess we saw it the way that Rangers exploited our fullbacks being so high at the weekend. Do you think that's something that the Lee Johnson will look to exploit with Chris Cadden and Cabraja on the other side? Yeah, well, they've kind of just been adopted now as wing backs rather than full backs, which is good because Cadden's good going forward. He's putting a few very good crosses in the last couple of games with a couple of assists and just been like quite a threat on that side. So that's definitely a means for worry for Aberdeen, especially with the big guy in the box as well. Yeah, I suppose when you've got a big target man to try and hit and a physical presence in the box, that does pose a lot of threats. And you certainly have got a lot of pace that can break from midfield as well. I just hope we don't afford you as much space as we did Rangers at the weekend. But I think with the fact that we're at home this weekend, I would like to see us a lot more on the front foot and dictating the play as well. I just wonder how much of an impact the fact that Jim Goodwin suspended for this weekend's game, as well as the midweek trip to Livingston, will actually have on us, as we saw how much we missed him at Tannadice when it was Lee Sharp in charge. But I'm actually really looking forward to the game on Friday night. Michael, I don't know about yourself. I think the two teams, they've been inconsistent. I think it's fair to say. Would you agree this season? Absolutely. But we're both up there battling for that illustrious third place trophy that doesn't exist but is coveted by fans outside the Glasgow too. We see what it brings in terms of European football, and I think this game will go a long way to helping and certainly putting down a bit of a marker. Both teams, as you said, you've got winnable games between now and the World Cup. I would like to think that we do as well, especially with the Dundee United game being at home. Livingston's always a bit of a tricky place to go with the pitch. Sorry to the Top Livy boys for mentioning that already, but I know we do have a decent enough record down there, but I would like to think that we can if we do win on Friday night, we can put ourselves in that strong place going into the break. And likewise, I'm sure you feel the exact same if you and Hibs were to take 3 points on Friday night.
Absolutely. Definitely the fact, I think I said it the last game, it's a good way for us to know where we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good, what's the word I'm looking for?
Indicator.
Yeah, indicator. That's it. A good yardstick.
Yeah. Yardstick. Oh, there's a very good pundit word.
It's an Aberdeen.
The yardstick of third place in Scotland.
Well, that's what it is. That's what it is. And because Hibs and Aberdeen are going to be competing with Hearts for third, realistically. So
it's going to be kind of the yardstick derby then.
Yeah, the games against each other are a good indication of where you are relative to the rest.
Yeah, and I suppose, kind of indicative of where we are this season as well and how close it is, probably sums up how poor the rest of the league is. It's just both teams need to benefit from being consistent. Hibs strung a good few wins together and then have been hauled back in due to that inconsistency, similarly with Aberdeen. So let's hope that, I know both of us hope that we can get back to that consistent way. I'm also expecting a reaction from that heavy defeat at Ibrox, and I know you'll be looking for Hibs to make it 2 wins out of 2. Do you want to put a prediction on the game, Michael? A tough one.
1 each.
1 each all. So both of us will be happy/unhappy, I'm sure.
I think you will score first, and then we'll equalise quite late, and then it'll go to VAR, and then it'll be granted.
I always like the detail you go into with your prediction.
None of them ever come in.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say we'll win 3-1. I think we'll try and look to really start on the front foot, but I'm not confident enough that we'll keep a clean sheet, and I'm just going to keep up the fact that we win games at home by 2 goals.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, perfect, Michael. Thank you very much for joining me this evening to look ahead to the game on Friday night. I hope you enjoy your trip up north, but not the 90 minutes. Well, I know you tend not to enjoy the 90 minutes because you always complain how cold it is.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Thank you very much. Justifiably so. They are just complaints. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Michael.
And there we have it. That is all for today from my good self, from Glen, and our resident Hibs fan, Michael, too. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you are watching on YouTube. Follow us wherever you are listening in. If you're listening on the audio platform, follow us on Twitter at RTG_podcast and on Instagram at RTG.podcast. And if Football Manager is your thing as well, check out the end screen if you're watching on YouTube. Calum Wright if you are not otherwise, and you can search for the name and check out the content. Why not subscribe whilst you're there as well? Thank you very much once again, and we'll see you in the next episode.